Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 11th day of February 2025. Just before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this evening's meeting is being live streamed via our YouTube channel. So folks at home, welcome that are watching tonight, and welcome to those that are going to watch tomorrow, the next day, or next week, or next year. So welcome, and we'll get the meeting going here. Sorry we're a little bit late, but our committee of adjustment ran just a little bit too late tonight, or a little longer than we had anticipated. So thanks for waiting. We'll call the meeting to order. We're going to deal with our closed session matters that we had earlier this evening first. We'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. I'd like to report that in closed session this evening, council approved the closed session minutes of January 28, 2025, and received information from staff and legal advice regarding 3 reports and gave direction to staff. Having said that, we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit there. The adoption of the agenda as amended, because we do have a financial services report that was added earlier today, and I apologize. So we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended, and that amended item is Financial Services Report 8.7. Sorry. Look for Deputy Mayor Calvers and seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. First up is deputations, scheduled deputations, new items, and I don't believe we have any of those, Madam Clerk. Next matter is deputations items on the agenda, and I don't believe we have any of those. And the third matter is correspondence items on the agenda, and I don't believe we have any of that correspondence. Unfinished business. I don't believe we have any unfinished business. After that, we have the consent agenda. We'll go through the consent agenda, and we'll see if there's anything anybody wants to speak to or talk to with respect to that. The first matter is that we have council minutes from the regular session of council for January 28th, 2025, and the special session of council for February 4th, 2025. Is there anything in those minutes, or is there anything that anyone would like to speak to with respect to those sets of minutes? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So I'd like to separate on February the 4th, 2025, the special session 66-25 resolution, as it's going to be discussed further down in the minutes in the meeting. So I just like to make sure that that there's nothing happened before that.
Okay, great, Councillor Shank. So you'd like to separate that, Madam Clerk? We can separate that and stand that down, or is it best to separate that and move it on to the next agenda or the next meeting?
So through your agenda, when council approves the minutes, you are confirming that the minutes accurately reflect what happened at the last meeting. And that is all that motion is to confirm that those minutes are an accurate record of what happened. Whether or not it was procedurally correct, I know we are going to discuss that later on the agenda. I would not recommend deferring that to a future meeting, because the minutes are part of our public accountability, that we post the minutes and that we keep the minutes. But certainly, I suppose if council wanted to remove that from the consent agenda and move it down to be the last item on tonight's agenda, that would be, council would be able to do that.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So hearing that, I just remove the whole item and move it to the end.
Okay, so we'll remove the regular session of council minutes for February 4th, 2025, and we'll move that to the end of the agenda. Great. Thank you, Councillor Shank. Do we need a motion for that, Madam Clerk, or no? Great, thank you. We'll just stand by for see if we need a motion to do that. If not, we'll move it to the end of the agenda and we'll deal with it later on tonight.
So through your worship, in the procedural bylaw, it does state that any member may identify an item contained on the consent agenda, which they wish to be dealt with separately, and then that item shall be moved under the items for consideration. It doesn't stipulate in here that a motion is required, just that a member identifies that they have made that request.
Great. I think we're good to go then. Next up, so we'll leave the council minutes for January 28, 2025 there for now. The committee minutes, Arts Advisory Committee, and I believe that is Councillor Norrie's committee. Is there anything you'd like to speak to?
written.
Sorry.
As written.
As written. Is there any questions with respect to those minutes, or is there any questions of Councillor Norrie that any members of council would like to have clarified? Seeing none. Correspondence for information, items dated February 11th, 2025. Is there anything in that correspondence for information anyone would like to have removed and spoken to? Councillor Hicks. Note, receive, and support. I think we're good to do that right now, Madam Clerk, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll look for a seconder. Sorry, we're putting you to work, Jess, and I apologize. That's correspondence for information, the matter with respect to the town of Cobourg. Sorry, it's a whole lot easier to talk than it is to type, and
Sorry, through your worship, to confirm that is the correspondence regarding the municipal restructuring.
yeah, that's correct. And we have a motion to move by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank.
Thank you about that.
Okay, perfect. We do have a motion on the floor. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns with respect to the correspondence? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. After that, we have the proclamation request with respect to the coldest night of the year. Is there anything that anyone would like to discuss there or talk to with respect to that? Seeing none, boards and advisory committees monthly report for February 2025. Is there anything in that report that anyone has any questions or would like to make any comments to with respect to that? Seeing none, executive services, East Lennox and Addington OPP detachment board terms of reference. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to speak to? Go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
Just because it's so new, we've had 2 meetings since last year when it started, and everything is in that letter, what they're proposing we do. And just, in Eastern Ontario, 90% of services boards are OPP now, and most of the province. So they've given us a lot of items to do with very little direction. So fortunately, we have Anne from Loyalist, who has been in police services board. She's our clerk or whatever, our secretary treasurer. So her and I are meeting regularly. I'm the chairperson this year of it, and we'll be coming back with more information. But one thing that's come out is, I don't know if you've seen in the media, a survey. It's going to go province-wide from the OPP. It is legit. It's not online, it's a letter. So we're all getting them at different times, and I would ask if you get one, please fill it out honestly and fill it out. Maybe we can stop some of the misinformation and complaining and get on the same team and support them. So this will help. They've hired a private consultant. They're not doing it themselves. I got my letter today. I haven't looked at it. So if you get one, and I think most people are in the province, please look at it. And I ask the public too. It's not a scam. And everybody's afraid of scams. So please fill it out if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Norrie, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes we just assume when we get something in the mail or we get a phone call that it's a scam now, and that's pretty bad that our world has gotten to that point, but that's where we're at. So thanks, and we'll pass the word around as much as we can. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, Your Worship. Following up on what Councillor Norrie said regarding the letter that residents will be receiving, because we use the OPP services, is something that we can broadcast on our social media platforms, like perhaps with like a snapshot of the letterhead, like when you receive this, it's legit and your input is needed and, you know, the town needs you to do this because you're, a hefty chunk of your taxes are going to pay for the OPP services.
Yeah, I think Mr. Grant wants to comment on that.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Hicks. Typically, we don't use our channels to promote materials from other organizations unless we're part of that. But if council wants to move a quick motion to do that, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. I would make that motion, that we use our means to broadcast that because I think it is important.
And I think, I agree with you, Councillor Hicks. I think it's, they may not be part of the town of Greater Napanee, but they are contracted by the town of Greater Napanee, and we spend a substantial amount of money doing that. So, you know, if it were a municipal force, we'd be, you know, just for an example, the city of Kingston, I'm sure the city of Kingston would be putting that on their social media page. So I don't see a problem with that. We do have a mover, Councillor Hicks, Madam Clerk. Do you have what you need for that motion? And Councillor Shank has seconded it.
Yes. Through your worship, just to be clear, the motion is that council directs staff to use municipal communication tools to share information about the survey being undertaken by the Ontario Provincial Police.
That is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we do have a motion on the floor. Is there for any further conversations, questions, comments, or concerns with respect to that motion before we call the vote? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor, opposed, the motion is carried. And finally, we have Executive Services correction to the street name proposal list. That, with respect to that report, is there anything in that report that anyone would like to bring attention to or speak to? Seeing none, having said all of that, we'll look for a motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items: that the minutes of the regular session of council dated January 28th, 2025 be adopted as presented, that the draft Arts Advisory Committee minutes of January 27th, 2025 be received for information, that correspondence for information items dated February 11th, 2025, less the correspondence from the city of Cobourg be received, that council proclaim February 22nd, 2025 as the coldest night of the year in the town of Greater Napanee, that council receive for information the boards and advisory committees monthly report for February 2025, that council receive for information Executive Services East Lennox and Addington OPP Detachment Board terms of reference report, and that council receive for information Executive Services correction to the street names proposal list report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, the motion is carried. Next. Items for consideration. Correspondence for action, Great Lakes Freshwater Ecosystem Initiative. And I see Mr. Nobes coming to the front. Michael, you're going to speak to this, so whenever you get settled in there, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Worship. Before council this evening is a request from the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, where they're proposing to make an application that would see the municipality becoming involved in a very minimal, from a very minimal effort perspective. What the group is looking to do is make application for funding to study sources of potential pollution into the Napanee River and Bay of Quinte areas predominantly. We understand that the city of Quinte West and Quinte Conservation are also in discussions with the group to join in with the project. Both the city of Quinte West and the town of Greater Napanee, we would have a very limited capacity in this project. It would just be quarterly meetings with one staff person to help with a little bit of information gathering and reviewing some results that come about from any research that's being done through the project. So staff see it as very low effort on the municipality's end. The group is looking for a letter of support to go along with their application, which is due on Thursday of this week. Staff believe that this would be beneficial for the town to support in that we would be able to use the outcome of such study in future grant applications where we're looking to see revitalization of shorelines or the water itself. We can really use the information and the results of this study to substantiate any grant proposals that we might be putting in for funding of future projects, broadly speaking. So we see it as low effort, but potentially high reward in the future. And staff's recommendation is to provide a letter of support for the Great Lakes St. Lawrence City's initiative for this funding.
Great, thanks. Michael, is there any questions or comments for Michael with respect to the report or or his presentation that he made this evening? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Michael, I noticed that they wanted our response by January 30th. Are we still able to get in there even though I see that they're putting in their applications February 13th?
Yep, through your worship, they were hoping to hear back from the municipality if we were interested by that date, which we had entertained some discussions with them, but we noted that we'd have to come back to council for authorization for any letters of support. So we haven't missed the cutoff, but we're here before council now seeking that endorsement to provide that letter of support to go along with their application.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council supports the grant application for the Great Lakes Freshwater Ecosystem Initiative and authorizes the mayor and staff to provide a letter of support on behalf of the town. Moved by Councillor Hicks, second by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion's carried. The 2024 Annual Drinking Water, Wastewater Treatment, Wastewater Collection, and Stormwater Management Reports. And I see Sarah coming to the front, so whenever you get ready to go there, Sarah, just the floor will be yours.
Thank you. Through your worship. So the town is required to produce annual reports on the drinking water systems under the Regulation 170, which includes the AL Dafo Water Treatment Plant, the Sandhurst Shores Water Treatment Plant, as well as the North Fredericksburg Community Center. So the North Fred Hall is required because it is designated as a designated facility, meaning it has been used for regular children's activities in the past. So I'm just going to go through a summary of the reports. So as for the AL Dafo system, the total volume of treated water was over 348 million gallons in 2024. Of note, the water treatment plant saw a reduction in treated flows in 2024 by 30% compared to 2023. We spoke to our operators and they believe that this was attributed to a significant water main break repair completed early January 2024. And they thought that they had gone unnoticed since roughly 2022. The average daily treated flow is approximately 41% of the plant design capacity. So Sandhurst Shores was also reduced in treated flows, seeing a reduction of 13% when compared to 2023. And the average daily treated water flow was approximately 13% of design capacity, indicating that the water plant continues to have significant capacity for any future growth. And there were no adverse water samples in 2024 for any of our drinking water systems. So the town's environmental compliance approval for the water pollution control plant also requires an annual report. So the total volume of treated wastewater was about 14% lower than that seen in 2023. However, this volume is still approximately 43% higher than the treated volume being distributed from the AL Dafo water treatment plant, largely related to inflow and infiltration issues. So yeah, during generally dry months from July to September, the average treated flow was roughly 47% of design capacity, whereas the average treated flow through the entire year was 74% of design capacity. So then the next item, the town also received two new consolidated environmental compliance approvals for both the wastewater collection and the stormwater management systems. So these ECAs are part of a new province-wide single environmental permission for both systems, and they both require an annual report. So as for the wastewater collection system, our utilities operators routinely perform calibration, maintenance, and repair activities as required at all 7 of our lift stations, as well as the leachate pumping station. Includes items such as generator testing, alarm testing, flow meter calibrations, wet well cleanups, etc. And then sanitary sewer flushing and camera inspections are also conducted annually for sections of our system to identify any areas of concern. So as for stormwater, that generally falls under Public Works Department. The town has developed operations and maintenance manuals for the stormwater ponds as per our ECA. So each pond is inspected routinely for any drainage, erosion, or safety concerns. In an initial inspected by a qualified consultant, they recommended sediment surveys on 2 of our older ponds, Beverly Street and then the one at the Best and Bash Arena. And those have been budgeted for 2025. Also to note, the ministry is working on developing a monitoring guidance document, at which time the town will likely be required to conduct more comprehensive stormwater monitoring, which may include sampling and analysis of stormwater effluent. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there any questions or comments for Sarah with respect to her report or the presentation she's done tonight? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the 2024 annual reports for the A.L. Defo Napanee drinking water system, the Sandhurst Shores drinking water system, the North Fredericksburg Community Center drinking water system, and the Napanee Water Pollution Control Plant, the Napanee Wastewater Collection System, and the Napanee Stormwater Management System. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. Next up, Parks, Recreation, Culture, Cemetery Draft Bylaw Approval by the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. And Sonia's come to the front, so whenever you get settled in there, Sonia, the floor will be yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. So the last time this came to council was November 12th. I had just come with some draft points of what we were going to change in the cemetery bylaw. We sent that to the BAO for their approval, and they have done an approval on the draft. They've sent it back to me with very minor changes. It was mainly just grammar. So I'm bringing it forward to you today to see if you have any further comments or changes that you want to see to it. And through resolution, we can make those changes. If not, I can send it to the BAO for final approval and their signature. And then that moving forward will be our new cemetery bylaw that we'll bring to the next council meeting for signing.
Great. Thanks, Sonia. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns with respect to Sonia's report or her presentation this evening? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receives for information the Parks, Recreation, Culture, Cemetery Draft Bylaw Approval for the Bereavement Authority of Ontario report, and further that council has no further amendments or comments regarding the draft cemetery bylaw and directs that the bylaw be included on the next regular agenda for adoption, and further that following the adoption, council instructs the cemetery administrator to send the adopted bylaw back to the BAO registrar for final processing and approval. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next matter, emergency services, fire prevention, and public education trailer transfer of owner. And Deputy Chief Feeney, I think, are you going to speak to that one? Whenever you get settled in, Chief, the floor will be yours.
Through your worship, the fire department's looking at taking our prevention trailer that we share with the KFLNA Mutual Aid Partners Association that was funded through a grant through the Trans-Canada grant that was the former chief who put it through on behalf of the KFLNA Mutual Aid Partners. Right now, we own the trailer. It's in our name and we assume all responsibility, but it's shared through all the partners. South Frontenac Fire Chief has asked that he would take ownership of it and transfer all responsibility and ownership to them. It would actually alleviate a lot of issues for us for transferring the trailer, save some staff time for moving it around. So I think it's a good spot to have it. It's sort of central to all our partners. So we're asking council tonight to enter a formal agreement to transfer that trailer into their name.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the report or the presentation that we heard from the Deputy Chief with respect to this? Deputy Mayor Cower, go ahead.
So if we approve this, they take full responsibility and liability for Bouncy Castle trailer, the whole kit and caboodle, correct?
Through your worship, absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cower. Go ahead, Councillor Pinell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Chief. This was purchased through the Atura Fund?
It was through a grant, a separate grant from my understanding through TransCanada back in 2021, that they had this grant to purchase the trailer. So I don't think it was things through TransCanada, not the Atura Fund, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so I guess I misspoke there, sorry, but where I'm going with this is that grant was that came from here, from our location, and how is that gonna work by this trailer going out to a different municipality, like South Frontenac?
It will work exactly the same way as it works now. And it just we won't be burdened with the cost affiliated with the maintenance insurance and the overall upkeep. There's an annual safety insurance. And we will transfer the scheduling app that we have for people requesting the fire safety trailer. And we just found ourselves taking that trailer all over the county on behalf of the other departments because of the size of the trailer. Not in all cases, but in some cases we were doing that.
Yeah, and I think
It does, yeah, thank you.
Madam Clerk wants to weigh in as well.
Through your worship, yes, I will just confirm that what is now the Atura Fund was previously the TransCanada Fund. Just went by a different name at that point in time. Staff did review the standard funding agreements for that grant funding to confirm that there's no outstanding obligations that this would conflict with, and we're confident that there's no concerns from that angle.
Perfect, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move staff recommendation.
We have a motion on the floor that council receive for information the Emergency Services Kingston Frontenac Lansing and KFLNA Fire Prevention and Public Education Trailer Report, and further that council approves the transfer of the registration, ownership, and annual service costs to the corporation of the town of South Frontenac. Moved by Councillor Hicks, second by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is Executive Services Introduction of the Complement Control Policy. I see Holly's come to the front, so whenever I get ready, Holly, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, through your worship. The reason I'm here today is to introduce a new policy that we're hoping to get introduced is the Staffing Complement Control Policy. It's a human resources management strategy that is used to regulate and control the number of staff within our organization. This policy ensures that staffing levels do not exceed the approved establishment set by council. It helps maintain the optimal workforce size, manage costs effectively, and gives everybody a guideline to work within. This particular policy was part of my mandate letter, and that's why I'm bringing it forward for you here today. I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the policy and looking forward to having it introduced to our town formally.
Sorry. Thanks, Holly. Is there any questions or comments for Holly with respect to her report or presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
I read it. Thank you, Your Worship. I read it. Very good document, long overdue, and I will move staff recommendations, so we've got that out there, and yep.
We do have a motion that council received for information, introduction of the complement control policy report, and further that council approve the policy for immediate implementation. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Norrie. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motions on the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Brunel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Holly, will there be a report coming back to us that telling us what the complement of staff is and how many people are in? I know that we have an organizational chart, but I'm just wondering if there's going to be something else that you're going to provide to us that will accomplish this policy stating how many positions and where they are and what building they're in and that sort of stuff.
Through your worship, to Councillor Pennell, should that be your wish, I'd be happy to bring that forward to council in a separate report following this policy.
Okay, thank you. I would like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Is there, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
Thank you, through your worship. So it says that the Human Resource Department will maintain an up-to-date record of the staffing complement and report any changes to council on a quarterly basis. Is that enough 4 times a year? Is that enough?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Through your worship, to the deputy mayor, I do think that's enough. So the essence of the policy would be any changes in the actual number of staff and headcounts, you would know about immediately because it would come forward with a report with a request. If there's any sort of minor changes that might happen in terms of where people sit, but no material change to budget or anything else, that would be included in a quarterly report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cower. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I think we have a motion on the floor, do we not, Madam Clerk? If there's nothing else, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Executive Services Crossing Guard Program. I see Madam Clerk heading up to the front. So Jess, whenever you get settled in, the floor is yours.
So through your worship, at the last regular meeting of council, council heard a deputation requesting that the scheduling of crossing guard posts 1 to 4 be shifted by 15 minutes in order to address some concerns around student safety. This report is being brought forward to present you with some more information with which to make a decision. At a high level, crossing guard services are fully discretionary at the municipality. Council can decide whether or not this is a service you provide, where you provide it, how you provide it. As a general principle, if you are taking a crossing post away, it is definitely recommended that you do a study prior to doing that. The last major change we had was in 2020 to add the Southview crossing. And Southview School has expressed that they have no concerns with how that crossing is running. We did hear feedback that Prince Charles and Napanee District Secondary School would like to see us shift the crossing back at least to the bell time of 8:10, if not later. We did hear from a few of our crossing guards that they have students showing up at their crossings at 7:30. Although they did mention that those are students that show up at variable times. It's not always at 7:30, but that they would have some safety concerns if the crossing were to be shifted. Overall, there's a lot of options presented in this report before council. I do believe a reasonable action to take now that we do have documentation that there is a safety concern over that 8 to 8:10 period, that we should do our best to accommodate that. And just sorry, while I have the mic, one other thing, I'm just going to soapbox a little bit that we have had a really unfortunate number of traffic violations occurring at these crossings. Thanks to the CCTV cameras that council funded, we are able to identify the drivers involved in those, and the OPP have been following up on them, but it is still highly regrettable, and would just like to request greater care and attention from all of the drivers going through those intersections during the school.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Once again, it's really too bad that we have to say that, but yeah, we're living in a different world these days. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
I like option number 4, where we extend the times out. Just to give an example, Center Street traffic is an average of 17,000 cars per day. The average speed right there, that intersection is 53.8 kilometers. 53.8 kilometers. That average is given 85% of the vehicles are doing 53.8 or less. And for the Bridge Street, West and Robert, it's 9,000 cars per day. Again, 85% traveling 53 kilometers or less. And Belleville Road is 3,000 cars per day. The average speed on that's a little higher because it's taken a little bit further out, but yeah, we're talking about, kids' lives here, so we need to take that into account because as time goes on, the traffic counts go higher and higher and higher, so. I like option 4 where we clean, extend it out a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going through the report there, Deputy Mayor Calver. So are you suggesting, rather than the staff recommendation, that to adjust the morning crossing guard shift, just so I have it right here, for posts 1 to 4 from 7:30 to 8 a.m. to 7:30 to 8:15 a.m., which would result in a 2025 operating budget increase of approximately $6,275. This can be accommodated through the other budget adjustments in 2025, but would need to be budgeted for in future years as a levy impact. Is that the option you were looking at or thinking of?
That was the option I was looking at. That's just extends the time out a little bit. I realize there is a bit of an impact there on it, but that's just my thought.
Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I'll second that motion. I think that's the most effective one and the most from what you've seen with the students going across. The only thing I would suggest is that, or I'd like to ask why such an effective day of Monday, March 17th? And when is March break? It's following March break?
I think that was the idea, but Madam Clerk can comment on that, yeah.
Yeah, so through your worship, if we were going to be changing the crossing guards hours and they didn't agree with the scheduling change, we wanted to give them a reasonable lead time, or if we were going to be shortening in the mornings, we wanted parents to have a longer window of time to not send your kids out for 7:30, send them out for 7:45. And that's why we were targeting the Monday after March break as a clean date to implement that. If the desire is to make the shift longer, we can probably shorten that notice period. I do intend to follow up with our crossing guards later this week following whatever decision council makes.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So with that intent is that since we're extending it, the motion is to extend it. If you could shorten it any way possible, that would definitely be beneficial, especially when you consider what's been happening and how many infractions have been at those crossing areas.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Deputy Mayor. Could you share those statistics with council, please?
As to where they come from?
No, actual numbers with us. Could you send that via email to us, please?
Yeah, I just copied it, got it off of the website for the county for their traffic counts. It's right on their site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver, Councillor Pennell. Is there anything further? Is there any other questions of Madam Clerk, or with respect to the motion on the floor, is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Financial Services, update to the 2023 audit. And I see Ellen coming up to the front. So Ellen, when you get settled in there, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the report before you outlines a staff recommendation for a contingency plan to continue addressing the ongoing progress in our 2023 audit. So staff have been continuously working towards the completion of this audit, and we've engaged in third-party support to work through some of the outstanding items. The funds that we're requesting will be used, if necessary, to amp up our contracted services support to provide financial assurance that this audit work can be completed as quickly as possible. This is a really important piece that we get this done as soon as possible, given the kind of trickle-down effect that this can have by not having current audited statements or current financial statements that will be used for other corporate initiatives. As outlined in the report, staff are looking for an additional $35,000 to support this work that we're undertaking.
Thanks, Ellen. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns for Ellen with respect to the report that she's done or the presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I read the email twice that preceded this report. I've read the report. I know the importance, and I will move staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. We have a mover in Councillor Hicks with respect to the staff recommendation that council receive for information the financial services report update on the 2023 audited financial statements. And further, that council approves the additional 35,000 in contracted services to support the 2023 audit to be funded through general reserves. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shank. Is there any, go ahead, Councillor Shank, then I'll go to Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, Ellen, are you confident with the extra outside contracted services that the AROs and the TCAs are all going to be completed by June 30th?
Through your worship, it gives greater confidence, yes. There are still some things that we'll need to work out, including once the audit prep work is all done, actually getting the audit scheduled, and that work being completed. So we are still working through some of those timelines. But it's certainly going to help in all of the prep work that needs to go into us being prepared to have the books ready for that.
Yeah, I'll go to Councillor Pennell, then I'll go to Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, can we have an amendment, friendly amendment on the staff recommendation to add, instead of an additional, but up to $35,000? And the reason why I bring this to everyone's attention, that under the financial implications, it goes on and says that staff are hopeful that the full allocation will not be needed and that the funds will be returned back to the reserve.
I'll look to Ms. Hamill. I guess the only friendly amendment would be the word up to. So it would be approves an additional up to $35,000. Is that, do you have any problems with that, Ellen?
Do not, your worship. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I better ask the mover and the seconder. Do we have any problems with that? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Well, you know what? High jumps, you've got the keys to the purse string. And knowing you're a competent treasurer and competent employee, if you can get it done for 19,000, I know you're going to get it done for 19. Just because it says 35, you're not going to go to 35. So as far as I'm concerned, I have the faith in my staff and all the staff that we have, all right, that they're not going to go, hey, it says 35, so I'm going 34,999. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll just leave it the way the motion is. I have faith. Of course, I know why you're coming here for this reason, and I'll just leave it the way it is.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. So there won't be a friendly amendment as far as you're concerned. So Madam Clerk, if we don't have a friendly amendment on both halves, then the motion stays or remains the way that it is.
Through your worship, yes, the motion would remain the way it is unless someone wanted to make a formal amendment to the resolution by way of resolution.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Should that be the desire?
Is there anything further? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have one question, Ellen. And that is, as you get the audit completed in sections, can we work with KPMG? Can they do the work as it's completed? Like, can you say, okay, pencil in such and such a date and you're going to have this chunk, and that way they're not getting it all at once and we can get this rolling and hopefully get it wrapped up sooner rather than later? Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the question, Angela. Councillor Hicks. Yes, we have initiated those conversations with KPMG. They're going back to their kind of scheduling to look to see what we can do, but that is something what we have proposed to them, and whether or not they can take it in bites rather than blocking off a full week for us. So we are in communications about that with them currently.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. And I can't reiterate enough what you said earlier, that this is important to our municipality. And we're very grateful for you, Ellen, for grabbing the bull by the horns and making this right. So thank you very much. So sorry, is there anything else? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk, how do I make a formal change on that motion? Because I fail to see the reason why something so small. In one part, it's telling us, and this report is telling us one thing, and later, later on, report is telling me something else. So I'd like to have everything match.
So through your worship, the process would be to make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor to insert the clause up to before $35,000.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor to include the words up to $35,000.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the motion? So, Madam Clerk, procedurally, we'll deal with the motion on the motion first.
Yes, through your worship, that's correct.
If there's nothing further, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion on the motion? Opposed? The motion's failed. Now we'll deal with the motion that was the original motion that's on the floor.
Yes.
And just so everybody's aware of that, we all know where that sits? Or do we need it reread by Madam Clerk?
So through your worship, that motion is to receive, it is the staff recommendation in the report, to receive the report for information and approve an additional $35,000 in contracted services to support the 2023 audit to be funded through general reserves.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anything further before we call for the vote on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed, the motion's carried. Executive Services Correction of Procedural Error. And Madam Clerk, are you going to speak to that?
Through your worship, I'm going to speak to this report. I am just going to stay in my seat for this one.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Hey, we're going to wear your shoes out if we get you keep going back up and back and forth. So
through your worship, briefly as a summary, this report is before council because following our last meeting, it was identified that there was a procedural error in how the resolutions regarding the funding of the arena flooring were handled. And so while the motion, because the motion was allowed to go forward on the floor and we did pass the confirmed proceedings bylaw, it is a legal motion, but there is still an outstanding question. Given the procedural error, there is an outstanding question with members of council. So staff felt the best and fairest thing to do in this instance would be to recommend that council at this meeting pass a motion to reconsider this topic of the funding strategy for the home hardware rink flooring. This would require 2/3 majority to agree that you do want to talk about this subject again. After which, should that pass, any new decision could be made with a simple majority of 4 votes. I do just want to take this opportunity to note that the main purpose of your procedural bylaw is to ensure that meetings are fair and predictable for everyone, that everyone has the opportunity to be heard, and that business is carried out in an efficient and an effective manner. That is why you have the general rule about 2/3, is to avoid or to set a higher bar for continually going back to the same discussion. But again, the procedure bylaw is set by council for how council wants their meetings to run. If things are not working for you, you always have the ability to request that this bylaw be amended. Just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that.
thank you, Madam Clerk. I know that we as a council have strived to try and do things as right and as correct and as efficiently as possible. So I'm glad that this was able to be caught, and it's going to give us an opportunity this evening to try and to rectify it. So we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Executive Services Correction of Procedural Error by report, and further that council consider Resolution 429/24 and Resolution 6525 regarding the funding strategy for the home hardware rink flooring replacement. I think what we'll like to do is we'll put the motion to reconsider on the floor, and then, because that would be proper procedure, and then we'll open up the floor for discussion. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. Who wants to start? I'm not seeing a lot of hands. If you wish, I would like to start then. I do think it's important that we have been an extremely efficient and competent council. And I may be biased because I'm part of that, but I think we have. And it's important not only to me, but I think it's important to our taxpayers that we try and do everything as efficiently and correctly as possible. There's a lot of places in this province, places in this country, I think, that would probably strive to do what we have done and strive to be where we're at 2 years into our term, or 2+ years into our term. So I'm confident that we will continue to do that. And this is an opportunity to correct a procedural problem that isn't earth-shattering. Nobody died. Nobody robbed a bank. But I think it's important to try and rectify it, and then we can have a bona fide conversation with respect to the matter that has risen as a result of this. So is there anything out of what I have said? Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So my only, I think as the municipality, we have to run by motions. We have a procedural bylaw that we have to follow. I'm not, you're gonna win some, you lose some. We still have to agree to disagree and stuff like this, and we still have to be civil. But the core of a municipality is run by motion and the procedural bylaw. It states here, correction of a procedural error. So there was a procedural error that we did. If not, if we start circumventing our procedural bylaw, then what stops me going ahead, or any other councillor or anybody going ahead in a year from now saying we're going to discuss this motion again? It gets put on the place where we've already put that motion aside and we're already driving that ship this way. So my only thing is that sure, there was a procedural error because you need a 2/3 majority to bring it up. We did not do that. We understand that there was a problem. All right. So I just want to be always, we have to be a clear and open municipality, and that everybody knows what's going on and that everything is done fair and above board. All right. Here was an error that was done. It was caught. So that's why I'm saying, let's get it on the floor and have a wholesome discussion and let it go the way it is, whether some win, some lose, or whatever it is. At least we've had the discussion and it was done, rather than just sweeping it underneath the rug.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Councillor Norrie.
Yes, I believe in Robert's rules, but we did ask at that meeting, and I know there was a lot of confusion, and I don't want to put anybody on saying they did anything wrong, but we followed procedure as we were given at that time by our clerk, and no disrespect. I mean, we did ask. We acted in good faith. We had a good discussion. We had a vote. So we've learned if there was a slight error, it was nothing nefarious, but we did ask. We followed the rules of the day, and here now we're wasting more of the taxpayers' time for a vote that we already went through and passed. So I sound like Bill. Sorry. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Norrie. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to reflect and reply to Councillor Norrie, we also had a very, very detailed, in-depth discussion on December 3rd and came up with a resolution regarding this matter. And I personally believe that this should be brought back and put on the floor, and we'll see where it ends up now, in a calm, reasonable time of night, if I may say so. I would just like to say that in my almost 3 years of dealing with Madam Clerk, never once have I questioned you, Jessica, and you have always been spot on. So one little, and I'll call it an oopsie that was caught within less than 24 hours. I think that this needs to be brought back.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Deputy Mayor Cower.
I believe we did it wrong and we need to do it right.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Councillor Shank.
I just, this is my last comment on it. Resolution number 429/24, moved by Hicks, seconded by Norrie. So, Bob, Councillor Norrie, you'd already stated one thing, and whether it was done before. So under the rules, we needed that 2/3 majority to bring that back up. All right. So that's why I'm saying, and whether that's the reason why no meeting should go past 10 o'clock. Because that's number one, because when it gets that late, you know what I mean? I never heard it. You know what I mean? I never heard Jessica say, hey, point or anybody saying point of order or anything else like that. But all I'm saying is what was done is done. I'm not going to cry about spilled beans, but to right or wrong, to at least to have it done correctly would be to bring it on the floor. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Is there anything further before we call for the vote? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion to, and we'll ask for a recorded vote, Madam Clerk. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor?
And so just to be clear, this is a motion to reconsider Resolution 42924 and 6525 regarding the funding strategy. Ward 1, Councillor Shank.
Yes.
Ward 2, Councillor Hicks.
Yes?
Ward 3, Councillor Pennell.
No.
Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
Yes.
Ward 5, Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Calver.
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we move on to the original motion. Is that what we're going to address now?
So through your worship, at this point, any member can put forward any motion related to the funding of the home hardware rink flooring.
Sorry, that would be the correct way of doing it, yes. Would anyone like to make a motion with respect to the funding of the home hardware rink mats? Go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
Just to get it out there, I move that the funding for the mats come from the arena reserves. Or however, Madam Clerk figures it should be worded.
I'm guessing that's going to be worded very similar to what Resolution 65/25 was.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pennell. Is there any further conversations, comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that is on the floor? Councillor Pennell.
Can we have a recorded vote on this as well, please?
Absolutely. We've worked, Madam Clerk, pretty hard already, and we'll continue to work hard. So, Madam Clerk, if there's no further comments, questions, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
I'll just stand by what I said before. The rubber's there to protect skates from the floor and the floor from skates, and the people wearing skates pay to use the arena. So it's a user pay. Other things in the arena, yes, taxpayers should cover it because it goes to the hall and that's fine, cleaning floors and that. But this is a user pay, which we've leaned a lot away to. And the arena, as was pointed out by Councillor Shank, has a heck of a big deficit every year. So I don't want to burden the taxpayer anymore. So it's to protect the skates from the user pay. So I'm in favor of coming out of that.
Thank you, Councillor Norrie. Deputy Mayor Calver.
I was under that, I was under that assumption too, and once we had our recreation meeting, there is a walking track approval that people walk around from rink 1 to rink 2 with their outdoor shoes on, boots, so on and so forth. So as much as I hate to disagree with Councillor Norrie, I do see where it is used by various people. People that don't skate still walk around. There's when you have the indoor events, people are walking around there as well. It's not just skates, and I feel it should go back to the levy as originally voted on. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Councillor Shank, then I'll go to Councillor Pennell.
So the way I look at it is there's consumables, all right, which is, flooring, this, that, and everything else is the whole municipality, and I have my viewpoints of everybody uses it or has the right to use it or can use it, then the reserve was put in for a replacement cost. All right. It's not an old arena, but it's a 20-plus-year-old arena. We have a dehumidifier that goes down. There's $180,000 or $175,000. I'm not sure exactly. It's around those numbers. All right. And we're building those reserves back, and we have to continue to build those reserves back because God forbid if something catastrophic happens with a compressor or a major infrastructure item in that, then we'll be going, what are we going to do now? But that's reason why on this ticket item, why I agreed with the original resolution that the $70,000 be through your levy. I'd love not, I'm the first advocate to keep my taxes low, all right, in this municipality. But at the same token is, we knew where we were financially, and we're finding out more and more with Helen and with the staff that we have where we are financially. And the only way this municipality grows, if we do not start thinking ahead and building those reserves back up. So I know I pushed to have half of it. I was pushing to say, hey guys, take it out of the reserves. The dehumidifier that was $175,000 or $180,000. So it's not like I'm speaking on both sides of my mouth. The reason why I'm wanted to bring that $80,000 down was because that would lower our tax implication again. But where our tax levy is now and what our rate that we can control, I feel it is still palatable. All right. I would love nothing to be low, but you can't with the cost going up and everything else going up. We have to have that. But because this is a consumable item, not so much of a major infrastructure item, I would like to keep that reserve as a replacement cost, what it was originally set up for, and build that up. So if you have a major catastrophe, all right, you have the money there to build our reserves and continue to build our reserves. It's no disrespect about anybody. Everybody has different viewpoints. I'm more than open to listen to them, but I just wanted to bring everybody else on council what my viewpoint of what are you doing and trying to save our reserves and try to increase our reserves, which our staff told us that is the most smartest thing to do. So I'm trying to follow theirs at the same time using what we've heard also.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Councillor Pennell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Calver, I just want to point out that shoes and boots do not cut the rubber like what the skates do. So therefore, with people are walking around in a walking track, very little wear and tear compared to when you're pushing off skates or you're coming out of the door and you're pivoting. That's one of the things. We have other maintenance funds, like for instance, the replacement of the ice resurfacer that come out of the fees, so that gets replaced. The arena fund is there, and with $70,000, we've heard of this before, that 140 is 1%, so 70% would be like a 0.5%. And I just think that the reserve fund is there to replace items in the arena, and this is an item that's in the arena.
Thank you, Councillor Purnell. Is there anything else? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question for Mr. Brown. The rubber flooring, is it fastened to the concrete underneath in any way, shape, or form, or is it just laid over the concrete?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Hicks, so it is glued down right now, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. And when you remove that floor, are you able to remove it in, I'll use the term salvageable sections?
No.
So it is a completely rip it up and throw it away. Okay. The floor is designed to be replaced, correct? And
Yes,
has it exceeded the current, or has it exceeded the lifespan, the life cycle that was originally given for it?
Yeah, we're right about that point. There's certainly areas of the floor that have seen more wear and tear in terms of foot traffic, so they're in worse shape. We've identified the home hardware rank as being in the worst shape, and then there's some parts on Goodyear, but it's not as bad. And then the 2 dressing rooms on each rink that are closest to the lobby have just naturally got used more over the 20 years of the life of the arena. So they are in worse shape than the 2 dressing rooms on each side that are further from the lobby. So that's why I had mentioned in my budget deliberations that I'd like to phase this cost over like 3 years, where we hit the worst parts first, and then to save a little bit, obviously on the tax levy, to spread that cost out over a few years.
Thank you. And just one other question. The dishwasher in the kitchen blows up, or somebody knocks over the rack with all the dishes. That would be replaced out of the operating levy, correct?
Yes. So in that situation, if it was an emergency purchase, I would have to come to council to request that. If it's like a dire need, if it can wait, I would bring that back. During capital discussions.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you. So the tile floor that's in the main lobby and all public spaces, when are we looking at having that replaced? Because I've noticed in my excursions there that there has been some wear and tear. There's the odd cracked tile. When is that going to be on your schedule? Because as you all know, that building is one of the front facing for the community. This is where other communities are coming in the most, other than the Ball Diamonds probably, for activities. So we want it looking sharp. And I'm just wondering what we'd be looking at in that time frame. Thank you.
Through your worship, I'm quite hopeful that we can probably 5 more years for sure. Some of the damaged tiles that were clearly visible in our lobby at the arena were just replaced. But we now have no spare tiles. So we replaced all the ones that were cracked or broken with new. And we are confident that we're going to get some more useful life out of that lobby floor. But certainly that will be a significant expense when we go to do that. And we don't necessarily have to replace it tile for tile. We could look at other options. But that lobby floor, I'm hopeful another 5 years.
Okay. And one more thing.
Yeah, then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Carver, and then I'll go to Councillor Shane.
In my mind, rubber flooring is in fact a consumable item. It is built to be destroyed. That is the purpose of the flooring. I state again, it should not come out of reserve. The tile floor, however, if and when the time comes, I would be open to having the tile floor come out of the reserve, because it is not designed to be destroyed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. No, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Chris answered that. I was going to say, because I was up there when they were replacing the tile. It was just fairly recent, and they did a fantastic job. You can't even tell where they've replaced the broken tiles to the new stuff. So whatever flooring company we use, Chris, kudos to them, kudos to staff, because it looks beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Carver. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is just to relieve everybody's pressure if this is such a hot topic. But in the old arena, playing hockey, and the new arena playing hockey, I still have my green and gold pants. They're an heirloom with my Cooper leather helmet. But instead of having blue and white, which is Picton's colors, even though I played for Picton, have you, as recreation, ever looked at maybe going back to you played there a lot more than I do, Terry or Mr. Mayor. Is there any way going back to a gold color or that green color? Get the tiles. That's off topic, but I'm just saying, hey, you know what I mean? If it does get approved, anyway, you're getting that green back.
Mr. Brown, did you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, just briefly. So the green color that is on the home hardware side right now is discontinued. And so with the rubber flooring replacement, we do know that we can't get that same color. There certainly is a category or a catalog of a variety of colors that have different specs through them. But we can certainly let council weigh in on the color of the floor once we get to that point.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Seeing none, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. The problem I have with it, I honestly thought that the reserve was a maintenance fund, not just a building replacement fund. So in other words, then we're never going to spend any money out of that until we need to replace the building. Is that correct?
No, I think Ellen wants to weigh in on it, and then I could, but I think Ellen will do it much more eloquently than I will.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to read from the Arena Capital Reserve Fund policy, which was adopted by council, I believe, in 2023. So expenditures from the Arena Capital Reserve Fund should be used for the rehabilitation or replacement of the facility.
Yeah, thanks. Does that help you out any at all, Bill?
Rehabilitation or replacement? That could go either way. The problem I see with it is if we put money into reserves, that money comes from the levy as well. Or if we use the levy to pay for the flooring, it's kind of one and the same. So I'm just I'm just up in the air on that. That's all.
Yeah, and just further to what Ellen has said with respect to the Arena Capital Reserve, I know initially I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was designed to be simply a replacement reserve, and then we combined a rehabilitation aspect, another reserve aspect to it, but primarily it's a replacement reserve. In the document, I think I've got the same one that Ellen has maybe, but they suggested in that document that the target for that reserve is approximately $8 million. We're putting in about, and again, my numbers are probably a little loose and frilly here, but about $200,000 a year. Am I correct with that, Ellen? In around the 200,000. If my numbers are fairly close, to get anywhere near $8 million, and with all due respect, 10 years from now, $8 million is, you'll be lucky to pay the parking lot, to be quite honest with you. So $8 million is, it's a nice starting point if we have to replace it, or if there's any major work that has to be done there. And I'll just make something up, say the roof fell in, it's not covered by insurance, or we need something that is extremely, extremely expensive. It's kind of a safety net for us. But I mean, at the rate that we're going to get up and around that $8 million, I mean, we're going to be 30, 40 years to get there. But yeah, go ahead, Ellen, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. Just wanted to confirm the information that you had stated. So yes, our annual contributions are around $200,000, and our projected 2024 year-end balance, of course unaudited, is around 1.2.
So we're not quite getting close to our $8 million range, and and the facility itself is already 25 years old. And I think each and every one of us that have built a brand new house can attest to the fact that when something gets to be 25 years old, it starts to break down, you know. And I can attest that I've seen it firsthand. And just as a complete aside, I mean, the showers in the dressing rooms, when one goes, they all start to go, because they're all about the same age, and if they get used about the same amount, they're all going to go at the same time. So in any event, I think we really are kind of splitting hairs. I agree with you, Bill. I think we're splitting hairs on some of this stuff, but I liken it to the fact that you know, I drive on the road, on the hardtop of County Road 9, and I don't drive on the shoulders. So why should I have to pay to get the shoulders done if I'm driving on the hardtop? It's because it's all one part and parcel, one unit, which is what our facility is. And I'll speak a little bit more to it later on, but there was a lot of smiles up and around the arena on Friday, and I think that we have a state of the art facility that's starting to show our age. We need to maintain it. I think Mr. Brown is doing an absolutely marvelous job of doing that. He could have come to us and said, you know what, all that matting needs to be replaced and do it all at once. But he's trying to be as frugal as possible to piece it out and do it in sections, which is probably not the cheapest way of doing it, because I'm sure that if we went to one of the suppliers and said we want it all done, we'd probably get a better price on it. But we're also looking at a big number. So it is a state-of-the-art facility. It draws people from everywhere, and I think we should be proud of it. So anyways, I've rambled on too long. Is there anything else anyone would like to speak to before we call for the vote? Seeing none, and just to, Madam Clerk, let's give it, because I've rambled on too long. So the resolution or the motion that's on the floor.
Yes, through your worship. So the motion that's on the floor is that council direct that the home hardware rink flooring replacement with a project cost of $70,000 be funded from the arena reserve. And the request was made for a recorded vote.
And if there is nothing further, I will turn it over to Madam Clerk.
Ward 1, Councillor Shank.
No.
Ward 2, Councillor Hicks.
No.
Ward 3, Councillor Pennell.
Yes.
Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
Yes.
Ward 5, Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Calver.
No.
Mayor Richardson.
No.
That motion is defeated.
Is there anyone that would like to make another motion? Because I know that this is going to be part of our budget, and I'd like to try and get some resolution if we can, but Councillor Shank.
I'd like to make the motion that the home hardware rink flooring replacement with the project cost of $70,000 be funded through the levy.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Hicks. I know we've had a lot of conversations about it, but we're going to open up the floor to see if there's any more conversations that anyone wants to have with respect to the motion that's on the floor. Seeing none, I'm assuming that we're going to do it. Thank you, Councillor Shank. We'll ask for a recorded vote, Madam Clerk.
So through your worship, again, to confirm for council, this motion is that council direct that the home hardware rink flooring with project cost of $70,000 be funded from the taxation levy. Yes. Ward 1, Councillor Shank.
Yes.
Ward 2, Councillor Hicks.
Yes.
Ward 3, Councillor Pennell.
No.
Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
No.
Ward 5, Councillor Martin.
No.
Deputy Mayor Calver.
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Council. I still think we have one of the best councils in this province. We've come a long way. We're a bunch of country folk that really don't know what they're supposed to be doing, but what I'm proud of is that we're able to have these conversations, and sometimes they're tougher than other nights, but I appreciate that, so thank you. Moving on, growth and infrastructure. PLZACO 2024-025 90 Mill Street West rezoning report, and I see Mr. Nobes is coming to the front. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Worship. I really don't have a whole lot to add. This was discussed during the Committee of Adjustment meeting held earlier this evening. This is the one of the conditions that was imposed on those provisional approvals, which is the rezoning to recognize predominantly existing locations of older buildings that front onto Mill Street and their existing attached decks and step encroachments. It also recognizes site-specific provisions for the construction of a new semi-detached residence on the south side of those lots that front predominantly onto Mill Street. So this would see the demolition of 91 Water Street and the reconstruction or redevelopment of that lot, along with the proposed provisionally approved severed lot immediately to its east with a semi-detached dwelling. These applications were previously deferred at a former Committee of Adjustment meeting to explore more opportunity to provide on-site parking, which has been undertaken by the applicant. The parking provisions are compliant with the requirements under the zoning bylaw as of right, so there are no reductions being sought from a parking perspective. I will note that there were some minor amendments made to the proposed draft bylaw in the early afternoon today. The impetus of those changes was to make more clear the existing location of the single detached dwellings that front onto Mill Street and their respective attached decks and steps. So what we did was we separated the requirement in the bylaw for the existing setback of the house to the property line, so the main wall of the building. We separated that from the encroachment of the decks in a more clear manner, in better alignment with our zoning bylaw. So those were the changes that were made, and just wanted to draw council's attention to that. And if there are any questions related to the bylaw, I would be happy to answer those.
Thanks, Michael. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Michael's presentation of the report that's before us this evening? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the growth and infrastructure PLZACO 2024-025 90 and 92 Mill Street West and 91 Water Street West rezoning report, and further that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment subject to the conditions that are contained within this agenda. And go ahead, Michael.
And through your worship, there have been no verbal submissions received or written submissions from the public.
Great, thank you. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Sorry, Madam Clerk. Yeah, this is where we said we do the minutes for the special session of council on the 4th of February 2025. Is there anything in that set of minutes anyone would like to speak to or bring attention to? If not, we'll look for a motion to note and receive, I believe. Am I correct?
Through your worship, approve as presented.
Approve as presented. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the those minutes? Sorry about that. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed, the motion's carried. Bylaw number 2025-0014 being a zoning bylaw amendment to a bylaw number 0222 PLZACO 2024-025. I'll look for a motion to put that bylaw on the floor for 3 readings. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. Ready first? Second, and finally passed this 11th day of February 2025. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. Bylaw number being a bylaw to adopt the 2025 municipal budget. We'll look for a motion to put that bylaw on the floor. Councillor Shank, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. Ready first, second, and finally
Sorry, through your worship, because council amended the budget earlier this evening, we have to give it first and second reading and then pass a separate motion to amend the bylaw to reflect the direction you gave earlier this evening, then a third reading as amended, and then we can finally pass.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It helps when I read the paper. So we'll look for a motion, first of all, for first and second reading with respect to the 2025 municipal budget. And there was a change with respect to that resolution. And
So we'll do 3 resolutions.
We'll do
First and second.
first and second. We'll do a resolution for first and second reading, but we're going to put the amendment in the first and second reading.
No,
correct?
you have to do between the readings.
We're going to do it between the readings.
Then the
Okay.
amendment, then another reading.
So let's put the motion on the floor first for first and second reading. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Ready first. And then we're going to make an amendment that bylaw number,
Just the first time, got to vote. Sorry.
all in favor of the motion that's on the floor with respect to first reading,
Yeah. First and second.
first and second. All in favor, I'm learning a lot tonight, Jess. All in favor of first and second reading. And opposed? And I have to vote, and I am for that. So motion is carried. Now we'll do second reading.
No, now you'll do the amendment.
Now we'll do the amendment, and the amendment is, Madam Clerk, help me out with that.
So through your worship, now the motion is between the readings here that bylaw 2025-015 be amended to reflect that the capital project for home hardware rink flooring with a project cost of $70,000 is to be funded from the taxation levy instead of the arena reserves, and therefore your taxation levy amount will be amended to $16,205,412.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we're going to do second reading.
No, that's the motion that needs to be passed.
Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Calvert, Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? And I have to vote, and I am for the motion that's on the floor. So the motion is passed. Now we're going to do second reading, third reading.
So through your worship, now at this point, council can do third reading as amended and pass the bylaw at this meeting, or if council prefers, council can defer third reading to our next meeting on the 25th, just so you can see that change in writing. Totally council's decision what to do with that one.
I think we're just better off to do third reading now. So we'll look for a motion for third reading and put it on the floor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calvert, seconded by Councillor Shank. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the third reading of the bylaw that's on the floor under that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? And I vote, and I'm in favor of the motion. The motion is passed. And I think that should do it. Am I correct, Madam Clerk? Thank you very much. Information reports from members. Is there any members that would like to make any comments with respect to any reports that they're involved in? And I know that I thank Councillor Norrie for making reference to the policing survey earlier, and I thank him for that. Is there anything else? Seeing none, inquiries. Are there any inquiries of council that they would like to task staff with respect to coming back at a subsequent meeting and clarifying something? Go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
Thank you, Your Worship. On September 10th, 24, there was a deputation from two members of the Arts Council, Dennis Mills and David Ellis, in regards to the Arts Awards. And I just got this last night at our meeting, and I've been going through and I found out the date of that, and apparently there was a motion for something to come back from staff on that. Now, I know we've had all these letters, excuse me, lose my voice. They just want to know, is there a staff report coming back on the viability of that, or is it contained within the letters so that we can just carry on, because the letter has a gray area that allows us to look into that? Or is there something coming back from staff? And that's what they were asking me last night to ask here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Norrie. Mr. Grant.
Through your worship, to Councillor Norrie, it is my intention to bring something back from staff to just outline what the viability of that would be. And I'll look to bring that in short order. We wanted to get through the mandate letters first.
That's what I told them last night, and I knew it was on your radar, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norrie. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything else? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. You and I touched on this on a conversation late last week, and I would just like to bring it forward. I would like to have the minutes from the county council meetings included in as correspondence, if that's the right place for it. But I would really, I would appreciate seeing that, and I think it would certainly give the public an easier route to see what's going on at the upper tier. So if that's something that could be slotted in, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, that's certainly something we can do going forward to incorporate that into our correspondence for information. Just to be clear, do you only want the county council meetings, or do you want also all of the county committee meetings?
Yeah, go ahead.
If it's not too burdensome to have the committee, because I know there is the TAC committee, there is, I don't know if Pellis would fall in under that, but if it's there, it's a link. And if it can be incorporated, that would be great. Even if it was the last agenda of each month or the first agenda and we have the previous month's county council, that would be, yeah. whatever works. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I guess while we're at it, maybe Councillor Norrie can funnel the minutes from the Police Services Board as well. And that way we should have everything. Is that possible?
Yes, I think they're in there, but I will make sure that I'll talk to Ann and arrange that, of course.
Thank you very much. And I guess I should have congratulated you for being the chair of the Police Services Committee. So congratulations. Is there anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
I can concur with what Councillor Hicks has said. Is in the past, the mayor and the deputy mayor, or, you know, we would get a little synopsis of basically what was going on. All right, because then it just brings us, in case we get asked by a constituent of what's going on or what it is and where the, you know, where our roles stop and the county roles, you know, where they start. But it always worked well in the past. And when I was on county council, I would go back and give it just a quick up to date, say what was going on, what isn't going on. Because one of the major things that ratepayers should know is that when they did elect a warden and deputy warden, they elected it, and this is the first time, and I was kind of gassed at it, is they took a warden and a deputy warden from the same municipality. You know what I mean? So when you have such a large county, it's hard to get representation just from one area. So how is that going to affect, you know what I mean, the municipality when we consider what our assessment is also? So it's not saying why they did or why they didn't do it, but it's something that definitely should be brought up also, or that the ratepayers should know. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Councillor Shank. I think there's an old saying, you just can't have too much information, you know, and sometimes it's tough to get updated on all information, but it's nice to at least have it all in one spot. So I think those are good plans moving forward. So is there anything else? Seeing none, is there any notices of motion? Seeing none, are there any announcements? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody that February 17th to the 23rd is Heritage Week in Napanee. And have a gander at some of the photos in the shop windows downtown on Main Street. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there any other announcements? I touched on it earlier, but I just want to thank the kids at the Napanee District Secondary School for taking the initiative to do what they did with respect to the charity hockey game that they had with the Kingston City Police. It was completely on their own. They come up with the idea. They decided that they wanted to do something good for the community and do something good for a couple local organizations. And they organized it all themselves and did a very good job of it. And they even let me play. So I was happy for that. They let some old gray haired guy strap the skates on and go and play. So it was a good day. It was a fun day. Kudos out to the, Sergeant Bernie from the Kingston City Police and the student council from the NDSS for taking the initiative to do that. And I like the idea. And I had this, I was joking with someone the other day that I think it was $5. You paid $5, you get the afternoon off school. I'd have paid probably $25 when I was a kid to do that. So that's part and parcel how they raise money. So thanks to those folks. They did a nice job, and they were able to donate some money to some very well-deserved charities in the town of Greater Napanee. So just want to bring highlight to that. Is there anything else? Seeing none. CAO's remarks. Mr. Grant, do you have any remarks for this evening?
I do. Thank you. And through your worship to members of council, I just wanted to thank staff and members of council for all the work and the effort that went into the budget process. And council can expect from staff, we're going to give you a survey just to see, in the spirit of continuous improvement, to see what else we might want to do to improve the budget process, to continue to make sure you have all the information that you need. And also a bit of a plug to members of the community that a communication survey for the community about how we provide information to the community is in market, so to speak, and we're closing in on 200 responses, which is pretty good. I think our record is 500 with the encampment bylaw, which I suspect will be hard to beat. But I just wanted to pass those thanks along and that message.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. The forward calendar. I know we've all had an opportunity to look at the forward calendar and the council resolution tracker. Is there anything in those two documents that anyone would like to ask any questions or bring our attention to? Councillor Shank.
You'll forgive me, but if you grant me a little latitude, I've just remembered, Michael, this is your department. The last snowfall that we had, and of course it's not our guys, this was a provincial highway. They took 10 can I continue? They took 10 mailboxes and half a section of guardrail off. And one individual had his mailbox totally wrecked twice because they were winging back. If we could have a contact name or find out through MTO and a person that can do it, because the amount of phone calls I had that next morning, and that isn't including the ones that were bent over, you know, twisted or anything. These are the ones that were totally removed. You know what I mean? And when mailboxes are 20 to 30 feet away from the post, it's, you know. So if you could find that out, I know Jeff was looking into it, but if you could find out that information, because it's a provincial highway, that so when they phone me, I can say, hey, or, you know, any complaints, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Is there anything else? Deputy Mayor Calver.
Thank you, through your worship. Yeah, through you, Michael, or to Michael, when you're looking at that, see if there's something that has changed, because I've noticed that they're pushing the snowbanks back a lot further this year than any other year. And there's the odd street sign missing on County Road 9 there as well. And just due to the fact they're pushing the snowbanks back so far. Back in the old days when we used to actually get a lot of snow, they used to do what they call a step bank. They'd push it back. When the banks got too high, they would just take the top half and push it back. But anyways, just curious to see if something changed with the standards.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. And I know Mike, did you want to weigh in, Mike?
Through your worship, to Councillor Shank, yeah, I'll certainly follow up on that inquiry as it relates to Highway 33. I do have planning level contacts. I can reach out to the area manager and get an appropriate contact and phone number, hopefully. We'll certainly report back. And to the deputy mayor, I'll investigate and report back on historic activities as it relates to snow removal and any changes that have occurred over the years insofar as standards of the municipality's practices.
Thanks, Michael. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Sorry, Mike, see down by the Glenora Ferry, there's a GFL. They're saying they look after number road maintenance or whatever. But when I phoned that number, they said they took my complaint, and I said, could you make sure you please respond back to me? And that was, I still haven't heard back. But that's the reason why, that maybe that isn't the same person. Maybe another contractor might have it, but you'll find that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. Is there anything further? Seeing none, look for a motion to confirm the proceedings for a bylaw for the Council of Corporation Town of Greater Napanee. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Shank. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 11th day of February 2025. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. And look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, second by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. It was another long evening, and thanks for bearing with me for all the coughing and hacking that I did this evening. So we'll see you in a couple weeks.